Hey everybody, it's the Mad Master here. I am doing something I have not done before ever in the history of this channel, and I know it's a growing trend for better or worse, and that is doing a tier list with this tier maker app, this computer magic here. And I decided, of course, being as in this obsessive Merciful Fate King Diamond phase as I am right now, to do a tier list of King Diamond. So a couple months ago, I finally got to the 2010s and got an iPod for my car, MP3 player. My other MP3 players for some reason won't work in my car. They still work, but they just won't work in my car. So, or I just didn't get them to work. So I got this iPod and I ripped all the King Diamond that I had on my hard drive to it. I was just kind of in the mood. And I do own all these on CD, by the way, too. And I even own Abigail on vinyl, so it's not too controversial, hopefully. But yeah, I was listening to a lot of King Diamond. And in doing so, I decided to listen to every one of their albums, because I hadn't heard them for years, a lot of them. So I decided to kind of rank what I think of King Diamond. I may do a Merciful Fate one. My preference is Merciful Fate, by a slight margin. I'm really a huge fan. I just love the riffs. I love the groove that Merciful Fate has. I love the atmosphere and the shred and stuff of King Diamond, though, too. So pretty much equally, but at times I'd have to say Merciful Fate takes it for me, and they have less music, so it kind of helps with that, too. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Now, I've already put this at number 1, Fatal Portrait, which is their first album, the band King Diamond, and I'll give you a couple of reasons about that. So back in 1996, this is a long time ago, I was in this weird alternative phase, and I still like a lot of stuff I got into during that said phase. I don't usually wear Jinkos that much anymore, but but I still like a lot of the stuff from back that I got into back then, a lot of goth and industrial techno kind of stuff. So that fall, though, I was working at Walgreens downtown in this town, and there was this used record store right next to it, and I was living at home, and I would just go to the record store, and my friend was really into King Diamond. I was just really curious. I just kind of heard some that I kind of liked. Now, a few years before, I had bought Merciful Fate's Melissa on CD, and since I was really superstitious and kind of religious and stuff, kind of Christian at the time, even though I absolutely adored it, I threw it away, and I felt really stupid about that. As becoming an adult and stuff, as I was, I decided to give the guy and his music a chance, and Merciful Fate a chance, of course, too. And I decided to buy a bunch of used King Diamond and Merciful Fate albums, and which got me into the more of the underground metal that I had been, which a year later would really blossom and bloom. So Fatal Portrait was one of the first ones. Now, Fatal Portrait to me is the best one because it has a huge variety, but it's also very much like Don't Break the Oath, where it has this atmosphere, this vibe, and this melody is very haunting, but very melodic and very catchy at the same time, very gothic in a certain way. So it's my favorite. It still is. A lot of people prefer Abigail, but Michael Denner has great guitar work, as did Andy LaRocque as well on both albums. But I would put that as number 1. It's really the one that got me into King Diamond. The Jonah is my favorite song off the album. It's kind of doom metal. It's most underrated album and song. That song is particularly underrated for King Diamond. So that'd be number 1. Now, what happened was, I got this iPod in my car, and I started listening to King Diamond and Merciful Fate a lot, so I decided to do a tier list, because I hadn't heard a lot of these albums for years. I don't know if I said that earlier. I didn't really structure this video, but who cares? There will be a lot more things coming up there, like this, or less off the cuff stuff too. So I'm going to deliberate here for a minute. I think I would have to say perennially my second favorite King Diamond album is going to surprise people, surprise the hell out of people, and it's kind of sort of shifting even as we speak, but I'm going to say Spider's Lullaby. Now, Spider's Lullaby is definitely a album that's not without its critics. It's his first album after a long hiatus of the King Diamond Band, and also during the reformation of Merciful Fate. So it's kind of controversial. I think songs like In the Moonlight or From the Other Side really win to me, and it's also a lot like Fatal Portrait because only part of the album is a story. Now, I love the stories that he comes up with. I'm just saying that would kind of be my third pick of third place. And it's S tier for me. In fact, there's a lot of S tier ones in this list. So I'm going to pick the third one, and I'm going to have to go with... I'm just trying to think here what I want to put at the third one. Well, I would have to say... lately, I've been listening to a lot of them, but Conspiracy has a catchiness about it that isn't the same on them. Them is more progressive, arguably. But, you know, I think the production of Conspiracy is a lot more clean and clear. So I'd have to say that'd be third. But of course, the third place in any of my choices, bands or whatever, does change from time to time. But I have to say it's a very consistent album. Now, this is where things will start to get surprising from me. I'm not doing the order of albums, but maybe I'll do that now. So what's the second album? Where would I put Abigail? I would have to put Abigail up there too. Abigail's great. I've gotten more into it as time went on. So I used to be like, oh, it's not Fatal Portrait. I like that better. When I was younger, you know, I didn't rebel against Abigail. I listened to it, but I definitely didn't listen to it as much as Fatal Portrait. Fatal Portrait was on all the time. Halloween! You know, I was listening to that all the time, you know, and singing along with it and annoying my friends subsequently. So I'd have to put it there. And that's kind of where I'd put it now. Maybe I'd switch these over, but I don't know. I've listened to Conspiracy a lot. So now the next one after Abigail was Them. So Fatal Portrait, Abigail, Them, Conspiracy in the first four. And I have to put Them pretty high up too, because I really like that album, especially now. That was one that I did not listen to when I was younger all that much. I liked a couple of the songs, I just didn't, give it a shot. Now that I'm more progressive minded and probably a better musician than I was, in my late teens or whatever, late teens, early 20s, I definitely like this a lot more than I used to. So I'd have to put that up in S tier. I think it's an absolute classic. This is going to be a really weird list probably for a lot of people, but nevertheless, I like it. So what's after Them? So Conspiracy, we already there, but The Eye. Now, I think this is the most underrated King Diamond album, so I'm going to be very, very bold and probably put it squarely between these two as far as how I feel about this one. The Eye has a infamous drum sound that is Snowy Shaw playing an electronic V-kit, or as they call it, V-kit or electronic kit. So that is, I would probably put it higher, actually. The songs are more consistent in my opinion. I'm not going to put it, it's a blasphemy to put it higher than Abigail. I would have to say it's probably more, I changed my mind. I'm going to put that equally in the top three, because The Eye, just the songwriting is so good and consistent, and the atmosphere and the keyboards and the vocals. Now this is a weird list, and it can change from time to time. Now my number one will always be Fatal Portrait, and sometimes it's a little different than that. So what's after The Eye? Well, we have Spider's Lullaby. Now is the most controversial choice, and you can probably guess what it is. if you've followed me at all in the past, you can probably guess what my most controversial choice is, or if you can. And I'm going to put this pretty high up because I really like this album a lot. I listened to it a bunch. And you know what? This was the most current album when I got into King Diamond. So, and that is The Graveyard. I'm going to put it 4th place. Wow, that is controversial. Now, this is what I think about The Graveyard. The Graveyard is... The production is flawed because it's very... You know, King Diamond lives in Texas. He was friends with Pantera. You know, he likes Metallica. You can kind of hear like an influence of like a groove, not like Overkill or Exodus, but like a little bit of a groove flair with the production and the guitar tone. So I think that's where the disconnect comes with a lot of people. But the songs are outstanding, and the plot is very twisted and very. It's one of the first times King himself is like, at least in a more explicit way, talked about social relevance, you know, with the child abuse plot and stuff, and Mackenzie, you know. So I mean, and it's funny too. I mean, there is some humor in there too. So I love digging graves, and I love you know, a lot of the songs on there, like Meet Me at Midnight or Black Hill Sanitarium. I love all the songs. So I'm controversial. I'm kind of a edgelord by putting it there, but that's fine. I love. So this is the core. To me, this is the core of King Diamond albums, in my opinion. Now we're gonna go past that, and you know, I'm gonna go in more order because people like that. So where does Voodoo stand? Now Voodoo came out when I was full on into King Diamond Merciful Fate, I might add. I saw the tour. It was great. You know, I still have the shirt. That one was a little bit. Some of my other shirts, like the Merciful Fate shirt I have, like one of the older ones, the nine tour, which I'll get to in my Merciful Fate tier list, which I'll probably do. This seems to be going well. I listened to a earlier take of this video, and it sounds good. So you know, I think this software is doing pretty well. So Voodoo was a disappointment to me, and some of my best friends really like it a lot. They love Voodoo. I think Voodoo comes up a bit dry. It's the heavier direction of Graveyard, and to a lesser extent Spider's Lullaby. It kind of had a more thrashy kind of direction they were going in. But to me, it comes up short on the melody. That's just my opinion. Like Graveyard, you might argue, has less melody than some of the previous albums, especially like The Eye. But it still has enough to carry it. You know, there's a lot of good stuff on it. But Voodoo, I would probably put... I'm giving it more of a chance. It is growing on me, so I'll have to put it here, but borderline B. You know, this would be essential. This would be excellent. This would be good. This would be okay. This would be MEH, right? So that's how I think of that. That album. There's no live albums on this list either. There could be. So, because he has a couple live albums, of course. So that's how I feel about Voodoo. Now, Voodoo's plot is very interesting because it's about voodoo in New Orleans and stuff. I'm very interested in that right now because I want to actually visit New Orleans. I would love to at this point. So that is kind of what I think about Voodoo. It's and it has some standouts, you know, Loa House and stuff, and it was cool seeing him live. But and the cover is Necrolord, who's the infamous or famous black metal cover artist who did the cover. It's an amazing cover, but nevertheless, I think it comes up a little bit short for King Diamond records or albums. So what came next was House of God. Now, House of God I also caught the tour of, and at the time I liked it more, but in my re-listening to it, I do not like it more, not necessarily. So House of God, if I have to pick something that goes into D tier, at this point, just because it was kind of it had some catchy stuff, and you know, none of these albums are bad. It's not like Iron Maiden with some of these, you know, Metallica or something with bad. It really, like, they would have, like, if I had to choose, they'd have like E, F, you know, down into the nether regions, you know, some of those albums. Maybe not Iron Maiden, but definitely Metallica or some of the Megadeth or something. I mean, it's not bad. It's not a terrible album. It's listenable. It has like insane. The song is it Insane or wait, Insanity? He talks about he has uses the word insane a lot. King Diamond. No, Help. That's the song Help with an exclamation point. Help! I thought that was pretty funny. So there's some humor in there too, obviously. So that's where I put that. House of God was kind of a middling album, in my opinion. It had a cool plot. It was about I even wrote a song about the same sort of conspiracy theory / legend, the book Holy Blood, Holy Grail, and later adapted into the Da Vinci Code. It explores those themes. The whole Priory of Sion, they call it. So, and I have a song about that too, which is like 12 minutes. But anyways, so where does that lead us to? Abigail 2. No, Abigail 2 is okay. I think it could go to C tier easily. It's not bad. It's not horrible. It's not horrific. I don't know why I'm not putting more into these fields. I probably will soon. But yeah, that's kind of where I'd put that. And maybe, I'm going to put Voodoo up because there needs to be more in this field. And it's not it's growing on me. So where does that lead to next? So that leads to The Puppet Master. Now, The Puppet Master, to me, was a return to form at the time. It has his now wife, Livia Zeta, on backing vocals, which is a new and a first. But even more, for a King Diamond, but even more so, I think the plot is twisted. It's about puppets and this Bulgarian, like all this insane magic and, was it this? Anyways, yeah, The Puppet Master takes place in the 1700s. It's like this puppet show and all this stuff and all this black magic, weird occult, like possession of puppets and being made out of human skin and all this crazy stuff. It's a great album. I'd have to put that in A tier because this is one of the best. It's not up to the absolute classics, but it's pretty darn close. So that leads us to the most recent King Diamond studio album, and that is Give Me Your Soul, Please. Now, the plot is pretty crazy, and even King Diamond includes his cat in the plot and stuff, which is interesting. It's about a guy that kills his family. If you're familiar with a lot of the cases coming out, the last few years, kind of messed up, but, kind of into this true crime thing, too, right now, and so it kind of fits with that. But, I think this album, unfortunately, for me, wasn't very good. I thought it just was missing a lot of the magic that the other albums had, and even though it's cut from some of the same cloth as The Puppet Master that came out years before, it just didn't really deliver the way that it should. So I'm going to put that in D tier. So that's the list. I really like The Graveyard and The Eye. I think they're the two most. I really like The Graveyard and The Eye. They're the two most underrated albums King Diamond ever did. And my favorite is Fatal Portrait. I think this, pretty self-explanatory list. And please subscribe, and if you like this video, give it a like. And that's about all.